Frankie, not long to go till it's Spurs o'clock on Saturday afternoon. You looking forward to it?
Always look forward to getting one over on Spurs. So yeah, it's going to be good.
Yeah, I've still got to get the no doubt a whooping handed out to Scotland by Portugal this evening. I've still got to get that over and done with, but then I can start to look forward to Saturday. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. Earlier on today and last week, we asked for some questions for this week's podcast due to the international break, and some of you kindly got in touch. We're going to kick it off with Tom's question, Frankie, who says, if a Saudi pro club offered 30 million for Paqueta in January, would you take the cash just to get rid of him and any potential suspension he may get if found guilty? Now, before we answer that question, he's been linked to Real Madrid in the last couple of days. I thought people were trolling when I seen it. I had a look to make sure that it was actually a rumour, and it's out there. But the problem is it snowballs, doesn't it? One person does it, and 5 people report that one person's reporting it. Then another 5 people report about those 5. So before you know it, there's 50 people, and it's all come from one source. And to be fair, I think it was just kicked off by Camavinga posting clips of Paqueta on his own social media more than anything else. But he's had a bit of a hiding from Brazil fans during the international break. Got booked within about 3 minutes of their game, and then got suspended for a match against Peru. But I've seen a lot of Brazil fans saying thank God he's suspended because he's absolutely stinking at the minute for Brazil and West Ham. So they're not too keen on him, Lucas Paqueta.
It's hard, isn't it? He's got a lot going on, and we all know a happy player is a good player. And I'm not saying, before that gets taken out of context, I'm not saying he's not happy at West Ham because of West Ham. He's just not happy because he's got a massive cloud hanging over him at the moment, which must be really difficult to process, difficult to deal with. He's probably putting in contingency plans for his life of what his next move will be. He's probably having them conversations all the time. Be surprised if he wasn't. So, yeah, he's got a lot going on. It clouds his ability on the football pitch. It's difficult. So I don't know. I mean, the question is, if somebody came in for that sort of money with him, would you take it? I think you'd be silly not to. I think you'd have to, and not just because of the potential that he will get a suspension and not be able to play and stuff, but he just clearly isn't, his brain clearly isn't on football at the moment. It's not the most important thing. He isn't playing with that, I don't know, that sort of freedom, with that, that ability where he spots just passes on the football pitch that he just, and it must be difficult with everything that he's got going on. So no, if somebody came in and wanted to offer us that sort of money, and if Real Madrid wanted to take that from him, we're just not one of those football clubs yet that can have a player of his importance, of his ability, of his stature within the squad just not play into his full potential. I would much rather have a £30 million alternative who is playing with the right freedom, expressing himself and totally mind on West Ham United and driving our football club forward. But there is a lot to be said for loyalty these days, and I think loyalty is something that has gone massively missing in most parts of our culture these days, and we're quick to throw people under the bus. So look, if he goes to Real Madrid, is that throwing him under the bus? I don't think so. I think you can quite happily go, we're taking the money, we're mitigating the risk, you get a move to a massive football club. If that's what you need to re-spark a bit of energy into your football career while you've got this football thing hanging over you with this betting scandal, then go. I certainly wouldn't just be like chucking him out the door. I do think there's a lot to be said for us to try and support him through this situation, because I think he deserves it and he warrants it. I heard you and Gonzo talking on your video about the most important influential players and about his pass in the final. I mean, his pass was incredible. What a moment that was. And it's always remembered for Bowen's finish. But if Paqueta don't play that pass like he does, then that don't happen. So, yeah, I mean, I feel a little bit like he's owed to him. So I want to support him. But if it's the right move for him and for us, and we can go and get a £30 million player in January, and we can stick him in our midfield who's playing week in, week out, and their head's on the game, then I'm all for it.
Did you agree with mine and Gonzo's list out of interest, out of the 10 we came up with?
It was a good list. It was brilliant. The Ogbonna situation was fantastic. As soon as he said it, you had that Ginger Pele trump card sitting there because he hadn't thought of the whole picture. And to be honest, mate, I've done that on these videos when you have to think on your feet and you don't have time to process everything. So you make a comment off the cuff, and then it's not until someone raises something that you maybe should have thought about, because it's an obvious thing, but you don't, and then you look a bit silly. But no, I thought there were some great points raised. I thought it was a really entertaining video, and there was quite a few that sort of popped up that you thought, yeah, I wouldn't have maybe considered that on my list. So it was an enjoyable watch.
Bit of fun. Back to Paqueta, I think there's a couple of things to unpack here. I think Tom's been kind, giving us 30 million as the figure. I feel like that makes it a bit easier. Had he said 10 million, I think it's something, well, do we or do we not? But in terms of supporting him and not throwing him under the bus, I think the club's already done that, personally, Frankie. You know, it's, what is it, 15, 16 months now since the allegation was first made. We've stuck by him. And we're kind of stuck with him, don't get me wrong, because there's no alternative. We can't sell him because nobody's going to take him on, or we don't think he will. But I do think the club have done right to as much as they can by sticking with him, just like we did, and you don't have to agree with it, but like we did with Kurt Zuma and the cat instinct, the club stuck by him in a completely different way. The club stuck by Angelo Ogbonna when he was injured, his contract was up, and they said, no, we had a bit of a gentleman's agreement that you'll get that contract, and we're still going to give it to you, even though they wouldn't have known if Ogbonna would have been able to come back from that injury. It was such a serious one. He was guaranteed to miss pre-season, but the club stuck by him. So no, here's your contract. We're going to show you that loyalty. So I do think the club can get it right sometimes, and I think they've done all right by Paqueta so far without knowing the ins and outs in terms of how much support the club have given him and whatnot. But I think for me, it's part of the situation is that it's a Lucas Paqueta problem rather than a West Ham United problem. It's not like he's getting done for something whilst, you know, he's not kicked a player while playing for West Ham. It's something he's supposedly done illegally, and it's, you know, the FA are going after Lucas Paqueta as Lucas Paqueta rather than Lucas Paqueta as a West Ham player, just that he committed the offences allegedly whilst playing for West Ham. So in regards to Tom's question, would I accept 30 million? Yes, I would, because A, like you said, we can only go by the speculation that's in the press. That's all we've got. We don't have any proof. We don't have any evidence. But I do think when cases like this are so big, there's so many people involved, leaks are inevitably going to happen, because all it takes is someone to tell someone, and before you know it, it gets out there. It's the same with transfers, etc. Even though everybody does their best to keep it under wraps, all it takes is one guy to have a little bit of a mouth on him and tell two people, and before you know it, it's leaked, and especially in this day and age. So I do think some of the stuff that's been drip-fed in the media will have merit to it. And I think because I'm almost like convinced that he's going to be found guilty, because just to reiterate, myself and Frankie didn't discuss it last time because we didn't feel the need to. It's done by probability, not evidence. They don't need hard evidence to say Lucas Paqueta done that. It's not in a court of law. It's done by probability. What's the chances of this happening and Lucas Paqueta not being involved? Well, if the answer is pretty slim, then he's probably going to be found guilty. And I think what it would do is give Paqueta an escape to some extent, because you still have the period with the English FA, but ultimately all they can do is ban him from the English Football Association competitions. But there is, you know, that paper talk that the English FA would try and get him banned by FIFA and make it a worldwide ban, which I would understand, but it would at the very least it would buy him time, because that's not going to happen overnight. If he was found guilty by the English FA in March and he's all playing for someone else at this point, and then they have to go to FIFA and FIFA open up their own investigation, it could be another 1-2 years before this gets tried. By then, before you know it, he's in his 30s anyway. He's collected a load of money in the meantime and stuff like that. I think to some extent, I think it perhaps would be best for all parties if something like that occurred. It's just, I can't see anybody willing to pay money and take him, knowing that there's a pretty serious allegation. And the English FA are a serious organisation as well, in the sense that if he was deemed guilty, I'm pretty certain they're going to go after him and try and get him banned worldwide. They're not going to go, oh, well, that's all right, then he's banned from England, even though he's over in Spain now, we'll just leave him be. I can't see it. So, Tom, my answer is yes. Do I believe any of the rumours to Real Madrid? No. I think it's just a social media post. Anything you'd like to add, Frankie, before we move on to
no, not about that situation, but we mentioned supporting footballers there. Just a little nod to Panathinaikos, to be honest, because I thought they're paying out Baldock's contract in full to his family, I think was an incredible gesture. I think we went through that Emiliano Sala situation with Cardiff and so on, and not wanting to pay the fee and all that, and that was done in really bad taste, in my opinion. But this is one of them moments that in football, actually, I think the club have done a good thing and the right thing. And regardless of what went on and the situation that, you know, occurred, it doesn't deter from the fact that he's got a wife and children left behind who need support. And I think they've been brilliant, really, to honour that contract and pay it out in full. So, yeah, cheeky little nod to them.
Well said. Right then, before we do the next question, just want to point you in the direction of our online store. We've got a sale on at the minute for this week up until 5 p.m. on Friday. We've got a few items up for sale, discounted at least 10% off, including signed Julian Dix prints. The link's in the description below. Go and have a little look. I've been clearing through some of the stock in Hammers Chat. I've got some signed Felipe Anderson photo if anyone wants it. However, the proceeds for the older stuff like that, the monies will go to the Iron Support and Food Bank, because it's a signed photo of Felipe Anderson, isn't it? Anyway, links in the description below. And just to note, we will not be getting any more Christmas jumpers in this year. There is still stock remaining of the previous two designs, but there won't be a new design this year, and we will not be replenishing stock because, truth be told, I've had a pretty large box on my landing for 12 months now, and I'd like to get rid of it, so that's why we're not getting any more Christmas designs in. Anyway, links in the description below. Frankie, we've got a couple of people asking questions regarding the academy, so bear with me while I read both out and we'll get your thoughts on it. Dominic says, given how well our academy players have played over the last 5 to 6 years, especially together, why has there been such a problem transitioning them to the league so we can take advantage of the chemistry between those players in our first team? I can imagine playing time has been a big issue, but do you have any insight into whether players like Bubama, Marshall, Kadu and Earthy have been actively developed during practices whilst on the first team roster? It just seems more like we squandered their development than they've all coincidentally haven't worked out. And Leon also asks a question on the academy players. It says, was it right for the fans to criticise Moyes for not using academy players as they're now being loaned out to gain experience this season, Lopetegui not bringing them into the first team?
Yeah, I had a bit of a sort of comment debate on this after in the last video when we was talking about Lopetegui and whether we thought he'd, you know, had a good start or a bad start. And one of the comments that I made was, well, let's look at the criticisms that Moyes was having and see if Lopetegui has addressed them. And I mentioned that obviously one criticism of Moyes was that he weren't bringing the youngsters through. It was taken that maybe I was questioning Lopetegui not now bringing them through. And actually that wasn't the point. I was just listing those, you know, factors of what were Moyes' main criticisms, really. So, but we went back and forth in a really, you know, sensible debate on that situation and said, look, and actually the comment that was thrown in there was a very valid one. And it's that Lopetegui's got enough eyes on him as it is at the moment. The expectations from him are always going to be incredibly high after the European runs that we'd had. And does he really need, is that a main priority on his list right now? If you was to list out, forget the Moyes list now, with the criticisms he had, if we're talking about Lopetegui's lists of what's his priorities right now, I'm not sure that development and bringing academy players through is top of that list. He's got a lot more to worry about at the moment with getting that first team right and getting the first team balanced and starting getting some results on the football pitch. I guess there is an argument to be said that maybe some of those youth players could contribute to that and that could help. But right now, I think we've got quite a large squad. We brought in quite a few players, you know, through the last window, and the priority is really getting, I mean, I don't even think we know our best first team yet. So how you can mix academy players into that is incredibly difficult right now. So I'm not putting any pressure on Lopetegui to start doing that just yet. I thought this season was always going to be an establishing the first team and a new style and, you know, getting that right. In terms of why haven't we seen more of them come through, I do think that Moyes wasn't a huge fan of using the youth players. I talk to a number of the youth players. I still watch a number of the youth players. I go and watch Charlton and I see a lot of them play. Really difficult. Why don't forget West Ham? Have a look at the whole of football and why do some players come through and why don't others develop? I watch Connor Coventry a lot down at Charlton. He's one of the most important players down there now. He was being left out the squad at the start when he signed for him, which was quite unusual. A lot of their fans were quite critical of Connor, really. They were not really appreciating his ability on the ball and what he can bring to the team. They were wanting the more physical players that you typically get in League One. They wanted sort of those crash. To be honest, they want to play like Souček. In that League One, it's like someone who can crash into the box, get their head on things, break up play. You know, that is League One to a T in terms of midfield. So that's what they were hoping for. And they got a ball player, someone who rarely gives the ball away, who keeps the ball moving, who gets the ball transitioning forward. And it didn't really suit Charlton at the beginning. They changed manager. Nathan Jones comes in. Nathan Jones is known for being quite ruthless. Connor got sat out for a game. He then got brought back in and it was made very clear what was expected of him. And now he's always on that first team sheet and he's a really, important part of what Charlton are doing this season. So does he look like Premier League level right now? Probably not. Probably not. Does he look like he can definitely go from where he is now to the Championship and potentially develop into a Premier League player? Quite possibly. But with quite a few more down the years now on Connor, and I still wouldn't be, if we was having the conversation now of could he be doing a job at West Ham? I'm not convinced yet. So there's, and now he's getting old and they're starting, when they start to get 24, 25, well, when are they going to be ready? So it's an interesting one. You know that I follow a lot of the sort of youth teams of West Ham, right from the youngest age all the way through. And I've never been convinced that when we were winning and we went to the FA Cup final, the Youth Cup final, even that FA Youth Cup final, you watched some of them and you thought, I wasn't convinced by Mubama. The one, as you know, that I was convinced by always has been George Murphy, but I still felt like he needed to just develop a little bit more physically. And obviously when he got clattered in his home debut for us, that sort of again showed a little bit like, well, but can he play a role? I don't know. It's really difficult. Then you look at teams like Crystal Palace, and Crystal Palace seems to have no problem with bringing those youngsters through. They managed to get minutes on the football pitch. Obviously, they're not having the greatest season at the moment, but they do seem to be able to bring them through and develop them. So for me, I think what we always used to be good at was even when you had the sort of smaller, lighter weight player. Look at I don't know, we didn't necessarily develop Defoe right from the very beginning, but one thing that we managed to get into him from an early time at West Ham was that you're not the biggest player, but you've got to run with your chest out. You've got to be able to still cope with, while we want you with that blistering pace and that finishing ability, we need you to run with your chest forward, with your chest out, and we need you to be quite, robust on the ball. And he managed to do that really well. I look at some of our players when they're starting to get to that 20, 21 sort of age bracket. And I don't think they look like athletes. They don't look solid enough. They don't look like men, is what I would say. I would say quite often some of them look like kids still. So I'm not totally sure that the way we bring them through physically has been the right way to develop them at this stage, and none of them have necessarily gone on. Like, we was all singing Cullen's praise, and he had a lot of praise from his lone time at Charlton and so on, and everyone was really fancying Cullen. He's gone to Burnley, done a job, but is he really, are we sitting here missing him, stewing on that decision to let him go and thinking, where's he gone? We all screamed when Grady Diangana left, and where's he now? So we've had plenty come and go. and there isn't many that, or any, to be perfectly honest, that we're sitting here looking at thinking, you know, we're gutted that we didn't hang on to them. So, yeah, I don't know, but we definitely seem to have something missing. Can Lopetegui fix that moving forward? I hope so. Can Noble help? I don't know. We all want to see it. We all want to see homegrown, developed players that know what it means to be West Ham. But right now, it just don't seem to be happening.
Yeah, I won't go into it in too much detail because we did an entire video with it myself and Gonzo. It's on the forum channel, and basically why I don't think Lopetegui will bring youngsters through is explained over there. But the difference between Lopetegui and Moyes, I think there's 3 significant differences at this point. One is player availability. Leon's right, they're all out on loan by bar Casey, but well, there's no one for Lopetegui to use bar Caelan Casey, whereas in previous seasons we have had Divine Mubama here if we want to use him. At the end of last season we had like George Earthy. When we did go to Chelsea and we had no centre-backs, we did have Elise available. So at times there has been situations where we could have played a youngster and the youngster was still at the club rather than out on loan, whereas at the minute, bar Casey, they're all out on loan. So it's almost become impossible for Lopetegui to play any youngsters. There's one guy left, really. The second point I'll make is circumstances, which usually you need a little bit of time into your season where, like I said, to judge Lopetegui will be if we are missing 2 of Kilman, Todibo and Mavropanos, what's he going to do? Is he going to use Casey or is he going to pull Alvarez back into centre-back or something? And I think he'll do the latter, but that's where I'll judge him and say, well, are you going to use your youngster or not? Because in theory, our 4th-choice centre-back right now is Caelan Casey. So we need to use our 4th. Are you going to use him or are you going to use a senior player and change the formation in order to not use the young guy? I think that's what he will do, but I'm waiting for that situation because my main criticisms of Moyes with the lack of academy was when those situations arose and he chose to play senior players out of position rather than use the youngsters in that position, or out of form players in those positions and continue playing out of form senior players rather than give the youngster an opportunity. And I guess both of them tie into factor number 4, which is longevity. And if a manager is going to be at Premier League Club for 4 years now, it's a very long time. I think it's fair to expect 1 youngster or 2 youngsters to come from the academy under that in 4 years. I don't think it's a big ask. Lopetegui's had 3 months. I think I'd have been shocked if any youngster had made it into his first team after 3 months. If he was here for 3 years, then I think it's fair to say, right, well, come on then, where is this? Either the talent ain't getting a chance or the talent ain't good enough and there's a problem at the academy. It's one of the two. And I know nobody's really gone on and proved us wrong yet, but I don't think it's as black and white as that, because if you take, Josh Cullen, for example, he went and then got his training at lower league clubs and he went out to Belgium and Burnley. I'd like to think the standards of training at West Ham is higher than the clubs he'd been at post West Ham. And Glenn Johnson's a really good example of this, where Tony Carr as well has said nobody rated Glenn Johnson, and one day in training they needed a right back for the senior team, so they went, got a right back over there, yeah, got this guy, send him over, we need him for the training match. Went over to play with the senior squad and I was like, what the hell, who's this guy? He's alright. Throw him in at the weekend, bang, off he went. But even though he was 16, 17 years old at the academy, he wasn't rated. They didn't think he'd go on and make it at West Ham. There was only that one training session changed his life. But my point is, if it wasn't for that, they would have probably loaned him out or sold him to a lower league club, and he may not have gone on to do what he did in football. It's funny, and Harry Kane's one of those players, had these loan spells, and he was crap out on loan at likes of Leicester and Norwich. Didn't do anything. Bang, Tottenham get European football. Right, we'll play the young lad in the European games. Start scoring goals. Right, let's try him in that though. And then they've got Harry Kane on their hands. So it's all circumstantial, isn't it?
Have you ever been any talk, Geo, with like Tim Stuyton, and we have a lot of this German football style of doing things now. Has there ever been any talk of us doing something similar to what the German team's doing, having these clubs where you can make sure that the training is to the level that you expect to try and develop players to get them through whilst playing league football and then get them over to the UK?
I'm hoping there's something going on. It's maybe a bit naive, but there's a few players at our club right now, academy players. Lewis Orford, let's pick him because he's just captained England under 19s, which I think is an incredible achievement. He's decided to commit his future to the club. There's got to be a reason, and I'll tell you what the reason isn't: a clear pathway to the first team. It's not like you go, well, look at these 3 players in the first team, I'm going to make it here. So there's got to be a reason that he's signed, and I don't know. I'm hoping naively that there's a bit of a plan in place that in 2-3 years' time we'll start to see 1 or 2 filter. If you can only get 1 or 2 players into your first team from the academy, that's a big success. Just having 1 player make it every year is a huge success. So it's not like you need a lot of them. But like I said, either something's going wrong, either the talent's not good enough, and therefore we're doing something wrong at the academy, or the talent is good enough and they ain't getting a chance. It's one of the two, really. So it's not great. Right, moving on. We've got one where, well, this will be actually, we'll keep this one, Frankie. It's a topic regarding like the concessions and stuff, and I feel like because it's quite a meaty topic, we'll do this one next week or something. But Nick Higgins said last week, do either of you have thoughts on why we seem to struggle so badly in our attempts to sign strikers and centre forwards? I genuinely feel our last truly great striker was Dean Ashton, and that's 20 years ago. Anatovic and Antonio worked well, but they were converted into strikers. Haller and Skamaka were, in my opinion, great signings, but wasted by the manager. Our failure to recruit and utilise players in this position has gone on for too long now to be a coincidence. So what the hell is the root cause?
I wish I had the answer. I don't have the answer. But he ain't wrong. And obviously Arnautovic springs to mind. There's another one that we moved from one position into a striker. Yeah, it has been. I mean, Ashton was fantastic, and it's really typical of West Ham that his career ended the way that it did, and we didn't feel the full benefit from having a striker like Dean Ashton for a lengthy period of time. The question is, if he carried on the way he was, would he stayed at West Ham? Who knows? But he seemed to love the club, and I mean, I enjoyed watching him play, and he's exactly the type of striker that I want to watch play for West Ham. So I would love to see that. Obviously, I think we have missed out on Duran. We debated that at the beginning of the season. Was he the right player? Did we want someone like that around the club? With his goal-scoring form so far, I think we'd all be loving him to be running that line right now. So, yeah, difficult. We seem to get it wrong very often. We just haven't found that right fit. And I don't know why that is. We've just spoken about youngsters. Mabama, we thought might come through and become the guy who maybe bucks the trend that we haven't got to sign one because we've got one that we bring through the academy. That doesn't work out. Yeah, really tough to know what the reasoning is. The only thing that I can give as a reason, and this is like clutching at straws completely, but the only reason I can give is that quite often for good strikers you have to pay through the nose, and we never want to pay through the nose for anyone. So we always want a deal, we always want a bit of a bargain, we always want someone that we think is, you know, a little bit of a deal, if you like. Look, how much should you pay for a top quality striker now? It's big money. We've just experienced with Duran. If we went and given him what they wanted, he'd be playing for West Ham potentially right now and would have started the season with us. So I think that is probably what it is to do with. To go and take somebody's best goal scoring asset from a football club, you got to pay, and we don't like to pay. So that's all I can think of, really.
I think we paid a fair fee for Haller and Skamaka, though. I think, the full crew, it was
30 odd million, yeah. That's not crazy money for a top European striker. I mean, you do well, and I know teams do manage to achieve it, but that's, I would say that was fair money for where they were in their careers, as with their ability that they had.
Yeah, but I'm trying to rake through the Premier League in my head as to which teams have got more expensive strikers than us. Not too many, to be fair. And I don't mean Fulkrug, because 25 million is cheap for a striker. I mean the 35 for Skamaka. I don't know what the answer is. We've had some okay strikers since then. You know, Diafasaka was all right. He turned out to be good value for money before it all went off the rails a little bit. We've also had some other big strikers in there, like Chicharito, who wasn't very good for us and had a stinking attitude. I felt sometimes. I felt like he thought he was bigger than West Ham when he was here at some point.
Skamaka still isn't doing it though, is he? I keep a very close eye on him. He's had a massive knee injury.
He's just riddled with injuries.
Riddled. So again, you know, if he stuck around, everyone says, "Oh, I bet they go somewhere else and they kick on." Haller obviously did, but look, you know, obviously his situation was very unfortunate. Why he had to have some time out of football. So. But yeah, it's not like we've sold the strikers on and then they've gone on and I know Haller did. He broke the record, didn't he, for the fastest to 10 goals in the Champions League, I think, ever, which was take some serious doing. So, but yeah, I mean, we've definitely wasted some opportunities with strikers as well. Sometimes I think we've brought them in, not utilised them correctly, or not played the way that suited them. But
well, I think some of it has been. This is just my opinion. I've got no proof of this. If anything, there's proof of the opposite because of the claims by those involved, which is that the manager has the final say. But my opinion would be that the strikers that we have brought in, like Skamaka and Haller, possibly been forced upon David Moyes rather than chosen by David Moyes. I don't believe David Moyes would have wanted Gianluca Scamacca. Nobody's going to convince me that Moyes wanted Scamacca. I think there's nothing about Scamacca that would suggest that that's a Moyes type striker. You know, you look at Antonio and it worked perfectly well for David Moyes. Why would he then want a completely different type of striker to Mikel Antonio? Surely he'd want the same guy again, please, but maybe a little bit better. And Scamacca was nowhere near the profile of Antonio, so I'm not happy with it. I think that one was, oh look, we can get Italy's best striker, the number 9 for Italy, let's go get him, and the manager will just have to make him work, kind of thing. And sometimes that will be okay, but other times it won't be because the manager doesn't want to play that way of football. The manager's got his way of playing and the striker don't fit it, but the rest of the team does. Because when you look around the team that we had with Scamacca, the likes of Jared Bowen and that, they all fitted the way Moyes played. The only player that didn't fit the way that Moyes played was Gianluca Scamacca. So I just don't think that was a David Moyes pick, and I think this is part of the problem. You're going to force players on that don't fit the way the manager want to play. Well, you're asking two things. You're asking the player to change his game completely, and if you're going to do that, you better get the guy with the right attitude, and that certainly wasn't what Scamacca was, because when he went back to Italy, you had the manager saying this guy needs to shape up because his attitude's stinky. Or you need the manager to change the way he plays completely to accommodate the guy up front. But when we signed Scamacca, we were doing well under Moyes. We'd finished 6th, finished 7th. I think Moyes would have been within his right to say, I'm not changing the way I play. It's working. It was working. So I think that one was just a bad choice by West Ham United Football Club as to who to go for. And I didn't know Scamacca before he ran. I didn't know this guy. I didn't know how he played in that. And I listened to what people said and got a bit excited because people said he's a very good striker. And I think he was a very good striker. And in some games he looked really good, but by and large he looked like he couldn't really be arsed and had a little bit of the Chicharito about him, which is I'm not that bothered for West Ham. Whereas with Antonio, he's not everyone's cup of tea, but I've never once watched him and thought this guy doesn't want to give his all for the badge or anything. Quite the opposite. I think he does it all the time. So I think it's just a failure of planning and sort of getting the right striker, I guess, or bringing in. I think maybe the club have perhaps been guilty of buying on reputation rather than fit for purpose. And I think that could be applied to Javier Hernandez, Sebastian Haller, who was, you know, one of the top strikers in European football for Frankfurt. And then Gianluca Scamacca, this guy with a lot of hype in Italy as well. Those three in particular who brought in have got big reputations. And I would say Nicolas Fulkrug as well. You know, we've just brought in a German international who was fantastic for Dortmund in the Champions League final, looked good for Germany at the Euros. West Ham go buying. So we brought in a striker with a big profile, or we brought in a striker fit for purpose? Well, the latter is yet to be answered, but I think you can tick the box for the first one, which is this guy's got a good reputation in football at the minute, and it's almost like a coup for West Ham, good striker. But is it the right striker? I don't know. I feel like.
But is that, Geo, because we always miss our first choice?
Well, you could say yes, because I think the first choice when we got Skamaka was in Nesri, wasn't it? We courted him for quite some time, and he just didn't want to come. Possibly, but the thing with Javier Hernandez, I recall this well because it was a choice between Chicharito and Iheanacho. Remember the Man City striker that went to Leicester? And Sullivan wanted Iheanacho, but Bilic wanted Javier Hernandez, and Sullivan was not happy that we signed Hernandez in the end, because I remember he said to people, I'm going to be watching how Iheanacho does at Leicester. It's almost like a bit of an indirect threat to Slaven Bilic, really, saying if you've got this wrong, you're in trouble here. And Iheanacho didn't get up and running straight away, so it was almost like, well, Hernandez didn't work out for us. Iheanacho certainly wasn't working out for Leicester immediately before he had his purple patch. I don't know. I think it's just a mix of everything, Frankie. I think just poor planning.
I was having a chat with the owner of Charlton the other week, and it was quite interesting because I asked him that question, because Charlton had a really good start to the season and were sort of unbeaten in the first 3 games and were kicking on. And it was really awkward, Gio, because I basically half said to him, I don't think it's much of a hard job running a football club, which is not what I meant at all. What I was trying to say to him was, I'm sure you work incredibly hard, and while I'm not saying that it's an extremely difficult job running a football club, do you feel like there is an element of fortune to when something just clicks?
Yeah.
And I'd always wanted to ask someone in football that question, because I do think that with Moyes, it just clicked through that period of COVID and whatever else. Something just come together. I'm not sure that was a result of planning. It was a result of West Ham building towards that. It was just, for whatever reason, something come together. And I said to him, look, you've had a really good start to the season. You're unbeaten in 3 games. I said, from your time at Sunderland and so on, I said, well, is there an element that sometimes it's just the right manager, right place, right time, the players just fall into place, your recruitment falls into place, and it just works? And he said, absolutely. He said, sometimes it is just everything comes together and everything gels. He said, there is obviously, we're always trying to plan and we're always trying to think who would work with who, and would this player link up with a manager really well, and is this, but unfortunately there isn't a crystal ball that tells you that these things are going to happen. So I think sometimes there is an element of fortune to it, and unfortunately we've been just incredibly unlucky with strikers so far, haven't we?
Yeah, you look at Leicester City winning the Premier League, that's proof that there is just sometimes, like you said, right situation, right time. Leicester City winning the Premier League. Nobody could have predicted that. Well, a few Leicester City fans did, because they had money on them to win the league at 1,000 to 1. But I've got a feeling they've done it every season before and every season after. Yeah. And they're still up overall, but bar one season they've been a fiver out of pocket. Just like every season I do West Ham to win the FA Cup. It doesn't mean I believe we're going to do it. I just do it. So there's definitely lucky people. Like the Moyes thing, like I always say this, nobody can convince me in a million years David Sullivan rehired David Moyes going, this guy's going to get us European football. No chance. Because if that's true, why did you not retain him the first time round? Because you would have. If you genuinely believe that guy's going to get European football, you wouldn't have went and got Pellegrini. You just stuck with David Moyes. So you went back to Moyes because he got the Pellegrini appointment wrong, and you just went back to him. And it was, desperate David Moyes who hadn't found a job since, and desperate David Sullivan who couldn't attract a good manager. It was Moyes or Rafa. I probably couldn't attract Rafa at the time. That's why he went for Moyes. And Sullivan got really lucky with that. Really, really lucky. Was it lucky for Moyes? To some extent, but you look at the core of the squad that achieved that success with the likes of Thomas Souček and Jared Bowen coming in and stuff like that. I don't know, Moyes just worked really well with those types of players. Mikel Antonio, Vladimir Coufal, Moyes just worked really well with that type of player. There's an old Tottenham centre-back who I speak to now and again. He's not Ledley King or anything like that, or Sol Campbell, but there was he's played Premier League games for Tottenham. And I see he posted something once, and I asked him about it. And since then, we've just spoken. He's a big advocate for players' mentality, not necessarily mental health, but actual mentality.
Yeah.
And one of his biggest things is being a squad player. He just said, like, he didn't mind being on the bench every week. He said, but there's some players just cannot do it. He says, like, when they're in the starting 11, they're the best player. As soon as you put them on the bench, your head just goes because they cannot cope. And he just said it's something that football fans don't consider, etc. He says they'll be like, "Why is that guy not getting a game?" He said because his head's gone. He's on the bench. He's out of it. He just can't cope with not being involved as much and stuff like that. So Moyes had the team he worked well with, the right signings. Was an element of luck. I mean, signing Vladimir Coufal, you don't do that unless Ryan Fredericks picks up an injury just before the season starts, and we panic and go, "Oh, we need a right back," and Thomas Souček goes, "I know one," and we go, "Oh, right, okay, let's get him in." Bang. That's luck. We didn't plan Ryan Fredericks to get injured, so of course you could argue that reaction from West Ham is good, whereas the alternative was to be like, "Oh, right, okay, we'll just won't bring anyone in, we'll just go with what we've got," kind of thing. But I don't know. Interesting chat though. Anything else you'd like to add, Frank? You've got some more questions, but I'm going to keep them for a later episode since we've already been chattering away for over 40 minutes now. Anything you'd like to add before we disappear? And one thing I do want you to add is your score prediction for the
score prediction. I am going to go for a very quick 2-1 to West Ham.
Love that.
Just an obvious score, but it's just I have to tip us to and back us to win. We might catch them a bit cold, who knows? So I'm really looking forward to the game. I think it's either going to play into our hands and our counter attack with Bowen and Kudus, and we're just going to be all over them, or it's going to be the other way. But I always back us, and I fancy us. And come the weekend, I will be even more confident that we're going to get one over on them. I've still got that feel. I know we beat Man United, which is coming up. I know we beat United 100%. So this could end up being a very nice little run for us. If we can get off to the right start with Tottenham, there'll be no stopping us.
Well, come on then. Spurs away, Man U at home, Nottingham Forest away, Everton at home, 4 games. What's the minimum points threshold for Frankie's satisfaction?
Minimum points from that is 7. That's like minimum. But I've got a feeling we're going to go and get 9.
And then, that's how I'm going to hold that as say, well, you start believing we could have a good season off the back of that, but we'll save that because I think 7 is a strong return from those 4 games. I think that's a good return. I think 6 is fine. 7, win 2, draw 1, lose 1 out of those 4 games. That's a good. I think it's a good test. These 4 games actually, it's a really good barometer. I think Saturday is going to have goals in it. I think there might be 3 or 4, 5 goals in this game on Saturday. 2 teams playing a high line. 2 teams capable of scoring. Neither team capable of keeping a clean sheet at the minute. Yeah, it just smells like goals.
You convinced me more of a 3-2, Geo.
I was actually I was thinking 3-2 West Ham. You know, I was just watching Tottenham recently, and it was funny with what they did at Brighton. But it's hard not to watch them thinking there's a lot of opportunity for West Ham here.
Charity bet, Geo. I'm going to send you the money for the 3-2. We'll whack that on. I fancy it. I'm convinced now. It's going to happen.
Well, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much. If you popped in a question in the last couple of weeks, don't worry. I will keep a note of them and we'll answer them. But if you do have any questions for future episodes, please get involved in the comments below. Like I said, we've got a sale on at our online store. It's not just signed Felipe. There's only one signed Felipe Anderson photo. It's just a bit of a laugh. There's T-shirts, mugs, books, Paul
I
Di
definitely
Canio.
need a new mug, Geo. This is looking very tired. I'll get in the shop afterwards.
Well, you go have a look and see if there's anything you fancy. But anyway, thank you very much for you guys joining us at home. If you've enjoyed this video, please do drop a like, comment, that clicking thumbs up. Subscribe to Chat, myself and Frankie. We'll catch you in a bit.